What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. I'm a musician and astrologer, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. As always, I thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for rocking with me all the time. Thank you for going to ZamboniPhone.com, where you can get a reading. You can get an hour-long reading where we'll talk back and forth. You can get a 10-minute reading, which is very much like this here. That shit is a deal, and I hope you go for it. It's 30 bucks, and it's way more value than some of the other readings that I have done in my time, you know, working for other apps and stuff like that. It's a good reading. You can also find music at ZamboniFunk.com. You can also find a podcast there. I did a podcast with my friend Brian Wilkins recently, who is a dope-ass geomancer. You should check him out also. Yeah, thanks for being with me. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. So this week is the week where finally Mercury is turning around. Love it. Love to see it. Love to see Mercury moving forward instead of backward. Now, of course, this is the week of the station, and so mostly what we get this week is pivot. We don't get Mercury moving around. Mercury's going to be at 21 degrees of Leo for the whole week, basically. So Mercury things are moving slowly. You know, the Mercury things being communication and transportation and understanding and all of that sort of stuff. Anywhere where you have to like meet in the middle, then that's going to be your Mercury stuff, right? Like when you've got the two sides and they're like maybe in different camps and don't know exactly what is going on with the other one. Anytime you're like coming together in that middle place, you're making some kind of transaction or trying to generate some kind of you're trying to transmit information of some sort. That's where your Mercury stuff is going to be. That sort of stuff is going to be moving kind of slow this week, but at least forward again, right? At least not the situation where it's just a mess all of the time, right? So it's a good look to be able to see that kind of thing, especially since everybody is still in these Mercury signs. The sun has moved into Virgo. Happy birthday to all my Virgo people. Shout out to you. We've got the sun there in Virgo. We've got Venus at the end of Virgo and is going to make a transition into Libra a little bit later on in the week. We've got Mars and Jupiter still in Gemini. There's a lot of Mercury. Mercury's in charge of a lot of stuff. And so to see Mercury beginning to move forward does look like an improvement, even though things are going to likely be kind of slow, and there's a shift in the directionality of things. And so it looks like a moment where, okay, we finally figured out what all the problems were and this kind of thing. In my case, for example, I did an astrology course. I taught the fundamentals of astrology for 8 weeks, and then after I got done, there were a couple of things where it was like people asked questions and I was like, oh, I definitely should have covered that. That should have been in the curriculum. So I went back and like revamped all the stuff, right? And so now there's a certain situation where I'm like, okay, so how am I going to move forward from here? How am I going to promote the thing? How am I going to like launch the next iteration of it? When's that going to be? All this sort of stuff, right? So I spent the Mercury retrograde time revamping what I was doing. Now it's going to be time to move forward on stuff. So it's likely to be all of this kind of thing in your life or in your company, or, you know, like at your job, this kind of thing, in your relationships, because we can see that Venus is here as well. Venus is actually doing some pretty interesting stuff this week. So Venus in Virgo, of course, Venus in fall in Virgo is going to be in a position to notice all the like little details and get potentially mired in that, right? I always talk about don't let the perfect become the enemy of the good with Venus in Virgo, right? But there is something really interesting here about this Venus in Virgo, because we see a trine to Uranus in Taurus, which is ruled by that Venus, right? So a trine to Uranus looks like, so a trine typically is supportive or beneficial or helpful in some kind of way. And then Uranus is the planet of disruptions, chaos, left field dynamics, innovation, experimentation, this kind of thing. So it looks like something very practical could go on here, like good ideas look like they want to come out of it. So if you are in this place where you're like looking through the little details and maybe thinking about how to move forward with things and not necessarily sure about it, but it might be a good way, like a good way to approach that might be to notice all the little details and sort of build up from there, rather than starting with a big picture approach and then kind of like letting that trickle down. Inductively taking the little bits and sort of building on top of them and arriving at a place that you might not have thought of otherwise is likely to be a good strategy this week. That's especially since we can see that once Venus moves out of Virgo and into Libra, we're also going to see a trine to Pluto in Aquarius. So this looks like, and those are happening like pretty sequentially. Uranus is pretty close to the end of Taurus, and so by the time Venus gets done with that trine, then it's going to be more or less immediately time to trine Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius, of course, is going to be like thinking about future dynamics, you know, like if we live in the future, then what does that really mean? And a lot of times when we think about Pluto, we can think about horror or this kind of thing, but we can also think about like power dynamics and power plays. And so if we're inductively building up a strategy that could be potentially innovative, then what is the best way to leverage that given the fact that we do live in the future? This looks like a really good time to sort of dig into that. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention about this Venus in Libra here is, so Venus is at home and comfortable in Libra. This is in domicile, right? So Venus, whenever I think about Venus in Libra, I like this placement a lot. I think that it's, you know, it's very elegant and graceful. One of my favorite images for Venus in Libra is the hostess with the mostess, right? Like this idea of like, I can take care of all the people and take care of the party, and and I know all the etiquette, and I know all like the social grace works really well with Venus in Libra here. Now, Venus in Libra, at the beginning of Libra there, also we have the South Node. And so the South Node is typically going to be some kind of release, getting rid of things, purging, all of that sort of stuff. Tail of the dragon, right? Like evacuating. So I've been thinking with this Venus in Libra, and especially in that kind of like power play dynamic. And I wonder if this might be a good time to get your gift giving game together. Like whenever I think about like if we want to think outside of the box, right, which is what Uranus would really like us to do, and if we are in the future, then maybe we've been boxed in by a kind of thinking that is outdated and we can move forward in some kind of direction, then in some kind of new direction, then we might get stuck in like the ways that like capitalism operates and the way that the economy and markets operate currently. And we might lose sight of some other things. And so there are lots of ways to get around that. There are lots of ways to move economically that don't necessarily have to do with dollars and cents at every moment. One of those ways is the gift economy. Robin Wall Kimmerer did a really great piece on that. Oh, was it in Braiding Sweetgrass? Was it in, I think it was in an essay that was standalone. I don't remember. I think it might even be linked up in my bio. I was really into it for a minute, but like in 2020, a long time ago. But the wisdom endures. That's what wisdom is. In fact, it endures. There's something about giving gifts. Seems like, because you know, if we're like doing Venus and Libra etiquette, but like evacuation, so it's like really nice and graceful, but we're like going away with things, not moving toward me. A lot of times Venus in a strong position will feel like cash and prizes in some kind of way. This one doesn't feel like that. This one feels more like, it feels so good to be able to give a gift. It feels so good to be able to say this thing. Like if we're hostess with the mostess, we're at a cocktail party sort of situation, then it feels really good to be able to introduce somebody and be like, oh, my friend is the baddest at whatever their craft is, right? And then you just sort of set them into motion, and then they get to have a great party because you set them up. You don't really gain anything from that except the joy of hooking your friend up in some kind of way. This looks like this Venus in Libra in early Libra here looks like a really good time to get that kind of thing in motion. And so there's like, I don't know if it's at all like, you know, like doing that kind of thing just kind of makes you the hostess with the mostest. You throw a great party this way. And then people remember you and stuff like that. But really the true power play here is not moving toward oneself, but moving outward and helping others out in some kind of way. That's what this Venus in Libra can really do here. Thank you all so much, Zem.